Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Flack-Wetherald from And Beyond and andbeyondimprov.com. And I'm so glad that you are joining me this afternoon. This is the fourth installment of the Lunch and Breathe series, which is a new thing that I have been doing lately where I take time on Monday afternoons. Let's just get the week started off well. Take a moment for some mindful reflection on issues that are topical for heart-centered culture advocates, leaders, HR team members, folks like you who care a whole lot about building a culture that consistently looks like your values. So today our topic is how to stop feeling defensive about culture issues. So it's easy to get defensive, especially when you've been really pouring your heart into culture, especially when you've been vulnerable, especially if you're in a situation where you've maybe gotten the feedback repeatedly. I know that that can feel very stressful and frustrating to continue getting the same feedback over and over and sort of feel stuck at this impasse of like, what do? I don't know how to make it better, and it's so frustrating. And then sometimes things do take sort of an accusatory tone as people are getting weary. They're getting tired of showing up to work every day and feeling like, when are these things going to change? So if you follow my work at all, you know that I talk a lot about the urgency of delivering on culture promises consistently. And it's because when we don't do that, that's exactly how well-intentioned leaders accidentally push away really great employees and team members. So it matters a whole lot to be unwavering in the way that you stand behind your values and really be about what you say you're about. So defensiveness gets in the way of that. Even if you have learned to be very good about being tight-lipped in the moment and, maybe not looking or sounding defensive in the moment, if in your heart you're defensive, and if in your heart you're defending the status quo for whatever the reasons are, you're not going to make the positive impact that you want to have. And ultimately, you'll still end up losing people because, people on the outside aren't seeing your intentions. They're seeing your behavior, right? They're seeing the manifestations of what the culture really looks like and feels like day in and day out. So let's talk about defensiveness. Let's talk about what we can do as leaders, as heart-centered leaders, to make sure that we are not being defensive, especially when it comes to culture issues. So there's a couple things. I made some notes because I wanted to make sure to cover a few points here. So yes, I wanted to point out specifically why it matters, like what can happen when you're defensive. First of all, you can end up wallowing in shame. If people are giving you feedback that you don't like or that you disagree with, you can end up kind of wallowing in shame because you feel embarrassed. Maybe you thought that things were going well or you thought that things were getting better. Maybe the feedback is directed at you specifically. And it's easy to jump into a shame spiral and then kind of hang back in the future and maybe not participate as effectively in change conversations as would be ideal. So that's one problem. And when we get rid of defensiveness, we'll stop doing that. Another thing that can happen is that you lash out. Maybe you lash out at people at work or at home, and it's because you're feeling defensive. It's because you're feeling like, I want to do better. I want to do better than I'm doing, but maybe I don't know how, or it's just overwhelming. You can sidestep your responsibility to actually make change happen, like I said earlier. Another thing that's really important is that if you're defensive and you're not allowing yourself to realize, this feeling I have, this resistant, heavy, frustrating feeling that I have, that's defensiveness. If you don't call it that and deal with it, maybe the reason that you're feeling this way, that there continues to be this headbutting between you and whoever is giving you the feedback, maybe you have not completely expressed your perspective or the why of the situation in a way that they can understand and receive. So it matters to do this work of understanding, like, what feeling am I having? If it's defensiveness, let me unpack it. And then as I've touched on briefly, it is totally possible to learn how to sort of trick people into thinking that you're listening, sort of imitate listening behavior, and kind of get the optics down of how to not look or sound defensive but you're not actually listening. You're not actually taking the feedback to heart in a way where change can actually be implemented or acted upon in some way. So we don't want that. So here's a couple suggestions that I have for you, because I know that you care. I know that if you are listening to this point, everything that I just said, those options of wallowing in shame or lashing out or never taking action, that's not what you're about. You care so much about your people, and it matters to you. It matters to you as a way of standing in your integrity. And it also matters to you because you want to be attracting great people, and you want them to be excited to show up to work and be enthusiastic about being a part of the team. So I know that's what you care about. So the first thing that it's good to do in order to stop that feeling, interrupt that feeling, is in the moment ask yourself why. So it's likely one of two reasons. Either it's because you know what you need to do, and the resistance here is, this means kind of upsetting some social politics or being really brave and vulnerable in a way that just takes a lot of courage. So maybe the reason that you're defensive is that you know what it is that you need to do. You know that this person is right. You know that a change is needed, and you're feeling ploppish is a word that I've come to use sometimes about what to do next with that information, and it feels overwhelming and scary because of whatever the reasons are in your situation. Number two is that it could be that you legitimately disagree. You do not see it the way that this person sees it. And, I've run in the work that I do, of course, naturally I run into this a lot, where the reason why there's tension and friction is that leadership has a different perspective than the folks who are sending the feedback up the flagpole. And the issue is that if you dismiss it as like, oh, you can't please everyone, oh, you can't make everyone happy, instead of realizing like, ooh, I'm kind of sidestepping right now, and I think it's because I feel defensive. I think it's because I feel a little bit like they're questioning my authority, or I feel a little bit like, some kind of way about the fact that they continue to give this feedback and I just disagree, and I'm the boss, so just listen to me. So let's talk about that, for instance, for a minute. A very good thing to do is kind of take a deep breath and allow yourself to remember kind of the basic principles of servant leadership. You are here to serve the people at your company. They're not here for you to boss them around. That's not your worldview. If you're watching this, I know that that's not your worldview. So it's just like in improv. Improv requires you to sacrificially support your scene partner. It means looking foolish sometimes. It means getting out there even if you don't fully understand, and supporting and participating and building with someone and figuring it out together. You can't improvise effectively if you're stuck in some hierarchy, needing to prove something, needing to kind of be the queen bee of the improv team or whatever. That's not how it works. You got to get out there and really get in it, really get in it with the other people on the team. And that's all of life is improv. This is directly applicable because we are all making this up as we go. There is no story you can be honestly telling yourself that says, it's okay for me not to really hear this feedback. It's okay for me not to participate in actively building a culture that's better and better every day. There's not a story you can be honestly telling yourself that says, well, I don't have to do that because I'm the boss. And so, I'm now relieved of my duty to improve culture or improve employee experience. That's not how it works. This is improv. And if the culture isn't matching the promises or the posters on the wall or the nice sounding words on your website, the onus is on you to participate in making that better and to deliver consistently on those culture promises. So that's step one, is figuring out where is this defensiveness coming from? Is it because I disagree? If so, let me make sure that I'm communicating clearly about why, about what my perspective is. That will give us both some more information in order to figure out what the proper next steps are. But another thing that I want to offer is sort of a reframe, because I hear quite often people talk about this type of situation where there's feedback being given about culture, there's tension that's happening, and they talk about putting out fires. And I hear this from people who care a whole lot, and they don't they don't intend for it to be like, oh, shh, we don't have time for your problems. We don't have time for your feelings. That's not the intention, but that's certainly the message that's received. And we don't want to do that. So I really encourage you to stop thinking about those tense moments, those passionate moments, those tender and vulnerable moments as fires that need to be put out. Instead of that, think about lanterns lighting the way. That's the reframe that I want you to be using. What if instead of this being this raging fire that you need to be afraid of and we got to extinguish it before it, hurts people, what if it is more of a controlled burn than you realize? What if this is providing light so you can see what's next? What if these are paper lanterns lighting your way to a really good future, to something that's even better than what you've had before? And yes, it requires sacrificing the status quo and having some vulnerable conversations, and, kind of reckoning with the fact that normal wasn't working for everybody. And I know that this may sound extremely topical about, issues of race is something that is being discussed a whole lot, as it should be. I want to be clear that that is not my central focus in my work. I am not an expert on that topic. But this does apply broadly to any sensitive culture issue that you may be dealing with, whether it be racism or sexism or social politics or nepotism or, an aggressive leader who's just mean and is making people feel bullied, or whatever the tender culture issues are, need for better communication, more transparency, more delegating, more forward momentum. There are so many things that this really truly applies to. And when you can realize that when people are bringing these culture issues to your attention, essentially what they're doing is voting for staying at the company. They're saying, hey, I'm putting my emotional energy into having this conversation. So, I'm voting for a better future. I'm voting for, a world where I say, let me continue putting in my effort, my emotional labor, instead of just checking out, what's on Indeed and figuring out how I can get the heck out of Dodge. So surround that experience of being presented with this perspective with gratitude and appreciation. And there's a lot to say when it comes to mindful improv, especially about choosing curiosity instead of judgment, and about choosing optimistic curiosity. We all get to decide what happens next. Just because there's been some tense moments or some heated discussions maybe that got a little bit on top of you before you had time to get back into alignment and be the leader that you intended to be in that moment, that doesn't mean that that's just how it has to be going forward, right? We all need grace for the journey. So what I want to invite you to do right now is take a deep breath with me. I'll do it right alongside you. And allow yourself to think about something that feels sensitive at work right now. Something, maybe it's feedback that you've gotten about you specifically or about your culture, kind of generally speaking. But allow yourself to think of a time that you felt defensive recently. And just do this process with me. First of all, ask yourself, why was I feeling defensive? Is it because there's this part of me that thinks, ooh, I think they're right. I feel sensitive about that. This is something that I've heard before and I feel sensitive about it. I know that I need to make this change. And, maybe I don't know how, or it's just overwhelming. Or number two, is it that you just disagree? And what needs to happen is a heartfelt, sincere, eye-to-eye conversation about the fact that you see it differently, the fact that you see this differently. So ask yourself, what's it about? And then allow yourself to feel gratitude that this has been brought to your attention. We need divergent perspectives. We need divergent perspectives. We will not build things that we're proud of if we have just a bunch of people that agree about everything. We need this kind of contrast. This is what helps pull us into something that's truly innovative. This is what helps us pull ourselves further on our journey of growth and standing in integrity as we continue to live on this earth, as heart-centered human people. We need these divergent perspectives. together, when we blend this completely different idea and this completely different idea, we get something new. We get something that's better than what either perspective could have offered on its own. We need each other. We need each other. And so surround those tender conversations with gratitude that someone was willing to be vulnerable, with gratitude that they were willing to be vulnerable with you. And then gratitude for yourself, for your willingness to be receptive. That's very important. The more you can surround the situation with gratitude, you'll be well on your way to building something that you feel proud of, that you can feel proud of. And then also really infusing some optimistic curiosity. What might this be leading to? Maybe something really good. What might my scene partner be seeing right now? Ask questions based in sincere curiosity. That's not rooted in fear, but that's rooted in optimism. You can have faith in your scene partner. They're here for a reason. They're here for you at this time, at this exact moment. They're here for you for a reason. Don't miss out on that, okay? I hope this has been meaningful. I appreciate all of you, the work that you're doing to build cultures that are safe, emotionally safe, thriving, healthy places of work, dignifying places of work. It's important work that you're doing. You're making the world a better place by committing to this work. So thank you very much. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or thoughts, please leave them in the comments. And I will look forward to seeing you guys next week, next Monday at noon. Bye.